Neymar's move to PSG in 2017 changed the footballing world forever. Perhaps the biggest transfer of all time, many would consider the results somewhat disappointing. But were they really? Would Neymar truly have been better off staying at Barca? How many more trophies would Barca actually have if he had stayed? And would he perhaps have a Ballon d'Or by now? It's impossible to say for sure, but in this video we're gonna try and answer all of those questions. Let's start with the Champions League, because like Daniel Craig, it's got big ears and everyone loves it. Since Neymar helped the Catalan club lift their last Champions League title in 2015, bitter rivals Real Madrid have won 4 unanswered. If Neymar stayed at Barca, would that really be enough to stop that unprecedented level of dominance? Well, in the 6 campaigns since Neymar's departure, Barca have failed to make it out of the groups twice. Now, sure, if Neymar's there, they probably have enough to make it to the knockout stages on both occasions. However, in 2022, they would probably have to face a dominant Liverpool team in the quarters, and considering that team made it all the way to the final and nearly won it all, backing this meager Barca team would probably be a mistake. 2023, on the other hand, could have been interesting. Inter Milan ended up pipping Barca to second place in the group, and they of course strolled all the way to the final, matching up against the likes of Porto, Benfica and AC Milan on the way. Now, those are all good teams, but if we're being honest, that's a relative cakewalk in the Champions League. Another Champions League final would definitely be on the cards. A supremely dominant Manchester City would be on the menu, but in one game, with a game breaker like Neymar on your side, I suppose. If we brush aside 2020, where not even Neymar could stop an 8-2 drubbing from Bayern, we're left with the real chances at Champions League glory. In 2018, Barca were embarrassingly dumped out of the competition by Roma. With Neymar there, though, you have to feel Barca comfortably deal with a team from the Italian capital. A date with Liverpool would be on the cards after, and considering Roma did push them to the brink, I don't think it's too controversial to argue that Barca could have handled the Reds, even if it would have been a classic matchup. Speaking of classic matchups, Real Madrid would be waiting in the final. In reality, Los Blancos were really gifted the trophy after Mo Salah's early injury and Loris Karius's disaster class performance. So I'm not sure how much we can really learn from this game. The 4 times these two teams did play that season though, Barca won 3 and drew 1. This included a 5-1 demolition at the Camp Nou. Sure, Real Madrid do always perform better when they're on the Champions League stage, but I think it's safe to say that with Neymar, Barca would have been favourites to win the Champions League this season and prevent a Real Madrid three-peat. 2021 was another interesting one, with Barca losing to a Neymarless PSG team. It's tough to say whether or not he would have been healthy had he been playing for Barca, but if so, it's likely Barca win that matchup. It's also likely, however, that they thereafter bow out after losing to eventual finalist Manchester City. Finally, there's the year that will always be remembered for
Liverpool 3-0. Corner taken quickly, Origi!
Yes, with Neymar, it's likely the world is denied of this unforgettable moment, and Barca probably advanced to the final to face Spurs. Considering this would be an opportunity for Spurs to win a trophy, Barca win this by default. Back-to-back Champions League titles and another potential finals appearance, not bad. In the 6 years since Neymar's departure, Barca have won 3 La Liga titles. Since they managed to win those without Neymar, we won't be looking into them beyond this. 2022 was also a campaign to forget, as they finished 13 points behind Madrid. That leaves us with 2020 and 2021, where Barca finished 5 and 7 points behind respectively. Now, I'd be tempted to give Barca the benefit of the doubt and say that with Neymar, they quite possibly would have made up the ground needed to win the league in both of those seasons, but I'm not going to. Neymar hasn't been the healthiest over the last 6 years, and there's a narrative that he hasn't always given league campaigns his all in recent years. I mean, PSG losing out to Lille in 2021 was quite frankly a disgrace for the Parisians. With that in mind then, I'll keep Barca's league tally over this period at 3. The Ballon d'Or is a tricky one to evaluate. It's unlikely Neymar finishes ahead of Messi in voting in any year they're together. So that rules out all Neymar seasons prior to 2022, which means some of his best cases for the award are evaporated, just like that. In 2022, it's unlikely Barca win the league or Champions League, so his chances of winning the award would basically be zero. That leaves us with 2023. Barca did end up winning the league in 2023, and they could very well have made it to the Champions League final, and maybe even have won it. That would be a strong case, and in most years would have won him the award, except this had to be the year that Messi finally won the World Cup. Yes, even when he wouldn't be playing with Messi, he'd still be in a shadow. But Neymar's transfer to PSG didn't only affect him and Barcelona. The entire footballing world changed the day Neymar made his decision. For example, 3 years earlier in 2014, Luis Suarez made the move from Liverpool to Barcelona for 82 million euros. A year later in 2015, Manchester City spent 75 million euros on perhaps the best player in the Bundesliga at the time, Kevin De Bruyne. And in that same year, English football's brightest young star, Raheem Sterling, moved from Liverpool to Manchester City for just under 64 million euros. 2 years later, and Romelu Lukaku would go for over 105 million euros and Ousmane Dembele for 145 million euros. A year later, Liverpool would demand a 160 million euro price tag for Philippe Coutinho, and a year after that, Benfica would have the audacity to require 126 million euros for João Felix. And believe it or not, Atleti were falling over themselves to give it to them. The Neymar transfer to PSG fundamentally changed football. Sure, he and Barca may have won a couple more trophies here and there if he had not moved, but the real difference would be in the market as a whole. The ludicrous transfer fees we see today probably wouldn't be a thing, and perhaps most big clubs, including Barca ironically, would have been in a better financial situation. For Neymar though, I think the criticism of the move is a bit overblown. Legacy-wise, it was always a gamble. You could make the case he would be remembered more fondly if he had stayed at Barca, but the opportunity to establish himself at PSG and perhaps elevate himself to the level of Messi and Ronaldo was too tantalizing to pass up, and I understand it. Now the three of them are all semi-retired in either Saudi Arabia or the US, and it won't be long before the next generation steps up to take their place.
Have to say bye bye yo, bye bye yo. Have to say bye bye yo.